For those of you who may not know who I am, I'm Norm Rasmussen, the director of the Precious Testimonies Evangelistic Ministries. I have the privilege of editing, putting together the video clips that go on this YouTube channel. What a blessing that is to be used of the Lord to minister hope and encouragement to others, be used of Him to plant water seeds in those who are searching for answers about spiritual truth about God. This is going to be a little bit different clip. I want to give some exposure to something the Lord is moving us to do on the Precious Testimonies ministry, and that is to make cases of this real life story book available to people. The Lord has laid it on our heart to send 60 of these, or a box of these real life storybooks, to anybody who sends a donation of $25 or more to the Precious Testimonies Ministry. Let me just share a little testimony with you that might give you a chuckle or two. I just this morning went to a soccer game my 10-year-old grandson was playing in, and watched him play, and it was just a blessing to see the kids interacting with themselves. And so after the soccer game, I was all on the other end of Grand Rapids, the city we live in, and so I thought, well, I'll just do a little bit of farming, on my way home. And I had just almost a full case of these real life stories, edition 6 testimony books, and so I thought I would drive into the inner city and leave those in some various places that I've left books before, and then perhaps some new places. And so there was one location in particular. I was just about out of these books, and at one particular busy location, there's a couple of bus stops on either side of the road, and it's just it's a very busy bus stop, and it's a great place to put a few of these books right there at the bus stops for people to find, so that God can get the right people to take them. Well, I pulled into a side parking lot to park my car, and it was full. And so looking around for a possible place to park, I see somebody backing out, and so I waited a bit for that person to back out, and then I decided I'll park in that parking spot and then walk just a few feet to the bus stop, leave the books, and then take off, go on home. Well, as that car pulled out, there was a young gal standing on the passenger side of the car to my left, and she was watching me pull in, and I had to be kind of careful to make sure that I didn't hit her. And so I pulled into the space and stopped. I had my window down, it's warm out, and started to reach over to grab a handful of these real life story books, and I was kind of praying as to how many the Lord wanted me to leave there. And she says to me, could you give me a ride? And seemed innocent enough to me, and I looked at her and I said, well, where do you have to go? Not having a clue. And she says, well, anywhere. Kind of smiling at me, real pretty like. And then it dawned on me. And I thought, well, what do I do here, Holy Spirit? Well, the most natural thing I should be doing at that moment. I reached for an individual real life storybook, and I said, well, no thanks, but how would you like a free Christian testimony book to encourage you? And I handed it to her out my passenger window, and she took it, and she looked at the front, and looked over the back, and looked over the front again, and then very politely handed it back to me and said, no thanks. Okay. And then slowly turned around and walked around the back side of the car and over to the passenger side of that adjacent car I was parked next to, and there was a fellow sitting there behind the driver's wheel that she was speaking to, and um, so I grabbed my handful of books and was just about ready to open up the car door then, and she walks back over and looks down through the window at me and says, "I'm sorry, sir. I'm really sorry." And I realized probably some Holy Spirit conviction had touched her just a little. And I didn't feel to make a big deal out of it. And I said, "Well, sorry for what?" Because we hadn't really discussed why she needed this ride to anywhere. And I just kind of wanted to see what she might say. Well, she didn't want to say. And so she got into her car, and he started it up, and they started backing out. I let them back out. Then I got out and walked over to the bus stop and put, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, I count them, books where they would be safe so the rain wouldn't get them that might come in. And I no more put those books there and just started to walk away back to my car, and there was an older gentleman there walking with a cane, a limp, just come up to the bus stop, and guy had a lot of miles on his face, a lot of sorrow that came from those wrinkles and gnarls from his face, and just the way he walked. And so he asked me, he said, "What did you just put there?" And I said, "Well, I put some free Christian testimony books for people to take if they want one." And he walks over really quick as he could walk, with his cane and limp, picked one up, and he says, "Wow," he says, and he starts thumbing through it, and he starts looking at it briefly. He says, "Wow, I really need this. Man, I've been discouraged, and I could really use some encouragement." And I said, "Well, they certainly bring encouragement." So about that time, the bus pulled up. He had to hop on it, and down the road he went, so I didn't get an opportunity to share any more with him, unfortunately. But I could just go back, and I could share hundreds and hundreds of testimonies like this for over 10 years, roughly, maybe longer. My wife and I have been able to hand out these real-life story testimony books that Jim and Carla Barbarossa from Step by Step World Outreach has produced and made available free of charge to people who's asked for them. Jim has entrusted us with thousands of copies to put out into the highways and byways at no charge to anybody. He's footed the bill out of his own financial means, he and Carla. And I just can't speak highly enough of this evangelistic seed. I have put out a lot of Christian content free of charge to folks out in the public, but I have never seen the interest like I see with this Real Life Stories testimony book. Now, this is edition 6. Jim has put out a number of other editions, and they work equally well. We have talked to people who've read the book. We have put these books in certain locations where they go quickly. And we have people that see us put the books down, and they come and start grabbing a copy and say, "My aunt wants one, my niece wants one, people want these, I got to get these before they're gone." And I say, "Well, wow, that's great, that there's such demand of you." "Oh," she said, "I've read it, he's read it, I've read it." So many people in the family have read it. It's been so encouraging. You can't know how encouraging those testimony books are. Thank you so much for putting them out. And then the testimonies, "Oh yeah, Uncle Joe, he's read it, and he isn't saved, and Grandpa and Grandma and little Junior this," and young people, old people are reading it, and God is using this book to minister to the unsaved, which is primarily why we offer it, as well as Jim and Carla produce it. Their call is to try to reach lost souls. And anything other than that, encouragement, imparting hope to the discouraged, the young Christians. We consider that secondary, though it certainly may not be secondary with God. Well, I don't want to go on forever in this particular clip. I just want to make it known that if you would like 60 copies of this book, we are making them available through Precious Testimonies for $25 or more donation to the ministry. Now, I might also add that in these 60 books we'll send you, we put in a Jesus Did It flyer. I would hope maybe most of you have seen this by now. The Jesus Did It flyer is what God did on the cross through Jesus Christ for humanity, and that goes in these books. It's a great bookmarker. People have thanked us for it. Well, it's also a tract, an awesome Christian tract God is using for people to make copies of and duplicate those and pass those out in their communities as well. My friend, this can be handed out one by one to people. Many are doing that. I have taken cases and put them out around places where I have checked, I have looked. There are retail places I know of where we put cases and cases and cases of these books. 60 copies at a time. We put 2 and 3 cases at a time. And we'll go back to those locations, and within a week they're gone. Some places in 2 or 3 days, if it's on a weekend with a lot of traffic, they're gone. I mean, it is like, whoa, this thing is so valuable as a seed watering, seed planting tool to those out into the highways and byways. I can't speak highly enough of this resource of reaching lost souls. So my friend, we're going to be speaking more about this because it's just been wonderful to be able to put these seeds out as witnessing tools. But the Lord has said, get others aware of the usefulness of this book. Make it available to others. And try to keep it as reasonable as possible. So with a donation of $25, or if you can send some more, that will help us cover the expense of mailing and purchasing these books, because it does cost the Precious Testimonies Ministry finances to make these available. So please pray about it, and thanks for letting me share. Any information that you'll need to order these books is put down in the description section below. There'll be a link there. Thanks for hearing me, and God bless you.